Story time about how I ghosted my boyfriend of 5 years. I know that sounds so bad, but he was a thief, a liar, and a cheater. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Like I said, my boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. We met in college and were basically inseparable for the first 2 years. On our 3rd year of dating, I started working as a personal assistant for a big celebrity in LA. This meant I had to move to LA. You see, we lived in Texas at the time. Well, things got really bad after I moved. He wouldn't take my phone calls, he would totally ignore my text messages, and he would go out all the time. For the first few months, I tried to keep the peace so I wouldn't say anything, but eventually it got to the point where we wouldn't speak for an entire week. Luckily, my best friend still lived in Texas, so I had her follow him around for 2 days. And you'll never guess what she found. Shout out to my bestie. She showed up to his apartment early in the morning and waited for him to go to work, which he did. When he was done with work, she went back to his job to follow him back home. This is when she told me that he actually went to some girl's house. He didn't end up going home at all that day. This man actually spent the night at some girl's house. The whole time I was trying to call him and text him, and he did not take my phone calls. My best friend even took pictures of his car in this girl's driveway. Since I had this girl's address, I looked her up on the internet. I even found out her phone number because I paid some service online. And of course, I found her Instagram account. She had been posting on her story about hanging out with some guy. But the thing is, she didn't show the guy's face. She only showed his hand. Guess what? I recognize his hand in the picture because it has a tattoo on his pinky. So of course, I took screenshots. Later that day, my best friend followed him to a bar. At this bar, he met up with another girl. Unfortunately, I didn't have any information about this girl. I just knew that she drove a green car. My best friend followed him again the following day. He went to the beach, ran some errands, and then met up with another girl. Yes, we have 3 girls in 2 days. This girl was different because this girl was a friend of mine when I lived in Texas. And I knew she always had a crush on him, but she could never admit it. They went out to dinner and then back to her place. And again, my best friend sent me pictures of everything, so I had all the receipts. Side note, I think of my best friend spying on him and it makes me laugh. I hope you can all say you have best friends that are like that. So here's what I did. I got on the first flight back to Texas and did not tell my boyfriend that I was showing up at his apartment the following day. But guess what I find in his bed? Part 2 is up. Story time about how I ghosted my boyfriend of 5 years. I show up to my boyfriend's apartment to catch him in the act, and you'll never guess what I found in his bed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. My lying, cheating boyfriend had given me a key to his apartment. So I unlock the apartment and make my way towards his bedroom, really quietly. When I walk into his bedroom, I find him curled up in his bed with another girl. He's holding her in his arms, totally fast asleep. And the worst part is, I recognize the girl that was with him. It was one of the girls who I used to be friends with in Texas. I walked backwards and closed the door behind me. That's when I just started to cry. I couldn't believe that he had done this to me. While I was working my butt off in LA trying to make a future for us, he was in Texas dating 3 women at once. No wonder he never picked up my phone calls or even texted me back. So here's what I did. I had printed out all the receipts I had, all the pictures of him hanging out with other girls that my best friend took while she was spying on him. I laid out all the pictures on his kitchen counter, and I left him a letter too. I told him in the letter that I could never forgive him and for him to never contact me again. Oh yeah, and that I wanted him to pay me back the $3,000 he owed me. You see, when we first started dating, he needed a loan for his car. I helped him out and gave him $3,000, which he promised to pay me. Obviously, we dated for 5 years and I never saw any of that money. So aside from him being a cheater and a liar, he was a thief. I left the note and the cards and left his apartment. I went to my parents' house and stayed with him for the weekend. Of course, my boyfriend, ex, showed up to my parents' house and begged to talk to me. My father told him to leave me alone and to never speak to me again. My dad told him that when he was ready to pay him the money. That made me laugh. I was totally crushed. I blocked him on everything, even through email. Of course, he got on someone else's phone and tried to contact me that way, but I never replied. He sends me emails every now and then and promises to pay me the money back. A few days ago, he sent me a picture of an engagement ring. He keeps telling me that I'm the best thing that he's ever had, that he's sorry and blah, blah, blah. I kind of want to reply to him, but I know that that's a bad idea, right? Or should I just talk to him and see what he has to say? What do you guys think?
This story time is about how my best friend almost got kidnapped. By the way, we're calling her Aaliyah. So back in the summer, Aaliyah was talking to a guy she met through Instagram, and she was talking to him for about 2 months, but they never actually met up. Aaliyah really liked him, and they planned a day when and where they go out to meet. The guy she was talking to asked if she wanted to come over to his house to chill. By the way, we're calling him Isaiah. And he wasn't far, so Aaliyah came to me and asked if I wanted to come with her. And I couldn't have her go alone if she was nervous, so I told her I'd go. So the day come and we go around 7, 8 o'clock. When we get to Isaiah's house, he welcomes us in. And when we walked into the living room, there were like 20 guys all around his house. We're so confused because Isaiah never mentioned that there would be other company. We sat down on his couch and everything was fine. We played games with everyone, which was pretty chill, until one of Isaiah's friends sat next to me and rubbed on my leg and asked me to come upstairs with him and another guy. It gets really crazy after this. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. This is part 2 of how my best friend almost got us kidnapped. So after we get to Isaiah's house, there's like 20 guys walking around his place. We start playing games, and I say after 2 hours, one of Isaiah's friends sit next to me and rub my legs and asked me to come upstairs with him and another guy. I immediately push him and told him to stop touching me. He gets up and grips me up like I'm some sort of rag doll, saying I disrespected him. And my body just reacted, so I slapped him in the face. My friend Aaliyah gets up and kicks him and tells him to get away. He got mad and walked away and told other guys in the room that we were weird. I was so mad, and I told Aaliyah I was ready to go and that everyone is acting sus. She says okay, so Aaliyah walks to Isaiah and she tells him we're about to go. He asks her for what, and she explains that I feel uncomfortable. He laughs and says that we're not going anywhere and that him and his boys were getting laid tonight. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 3. This is part 3 of how my best friend almost got us kidnapped. So Aaliyah tells Isaiah that we're ready to go, and he basically said that we can't leave and that him and his friends were getting laid tonight. Aaliyah says, well, you better call up some hoes because we're leaving. So we gather up our things and tried to walk out, and Isaiah yanked Aaliyah's leg, and when she fell, Isaiah jumped on top of her saying that we can't go anywhere, and all the guys start crowding around us. So I kicked Isaiah in the head and pulled Aaliyah up to go, and she's like, run. So we're running, and a couple of guys start chasing after us. One of them were really fast and catches up to us. He picks me up and starts taking me back to Isaiah's house, and I'm sitting there punching and kicking and screaming. That's all the time I have. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. This story time is how I was scammed out of $20,000. Yes, $20,000. At the time, I was 26 and I was looking for ways for making extra money on the side. So basically, I was looking into investing my money into some sort of stock or company. I didn't know much about investing, but I would hear people talk about it all the time. A couple weeks later, I had a friend, and we're going to call him David. He invited me into an investment club presentation for multiple business. I was new to all of this, so I wanted to take a look at what he was talking about. There was one particular company that had an app for working out, and they sold workout clothing and weights. I thought their pitch was great and chose to speak with them. After weeks of discussion, there were contracts and everything. Me and a couple people invested into this company with our money, but the company members went ghost after a week. And this is when it gets crazy, like for part 2. This is part 2 story time of how I was scammed out of $20,000. So, like I said earlier, there was a particular workout app company I invested into. We filled out contracts. I gave them my part of the investment, which was $20,000. But after a couple days, they completely went ghost. I tried reaching out to the other people that supposedly invested, but none of them got back to me. I was so confused. So then I did my research on the company, which I should have done before, but there was no information. So then I went and talked to my friend David about it. When I showed him the contracts and everything they told me about, he basically told me that the contracts were fake and they scammed me. We then went searching up the other investors, and it was like they didn't even exist. I realized that everyone I was speaking with were all actors. Even the investors were fake. The whole company was a scam, and I was scammed